Um, Good morning, Miss Johnson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Mary, and I'll be working with you today. And just before we begin, I wanted to ask, would you prefer to be called Miss Johnson or Sarah or something else?
Sarah's fine.
Sarah? All right. Well, it's so nice meeting you, Sarah.
Nice meeting you too.
So before we begin, I just wanted to check in. Have you ever been in therapy before?
No,
No?
my first
Okay.
time.
All right, so there's going to be a lot of first times for you. We're just going to go through all of them one by one. If at any point you have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to stop me, interrupt me, say whatever you need to say. And if you have any questions, I'll be sure to address them to the best of my abilities. Um, so just going into kind of the nitty-gritty paperwork part of things, we're going to go through some confidentiality and the exceptions to that confidentiality. Like, people say about Vegas, what stays here or what is said here will stay here. It's much the same like therapy. Whatever you choose to share with me will stay between the two of us as per confidentiality. But with that, there are a few limitations to it. Um, if you express any intent to hurt yourself or kill yourself, particularly any suicidal thoughts or actions or plans to do so, I will have to break confidentiality. If you have any intent to harm others or plan to hurt others, that's also another reason. And then third and finally is if you plan to, not third and finally, I'm sorry, there's another one. But another one is if you plan to share any abuse happening to any protected populations, which includes children, elderly, any protected adults. That'll be another reason to break confidentiality. And this is the final one. Is if we are subpoenaed for our notes or any of our sessions, I will try my very best to not give them at all. But
Mhm.
if it's demanded of me, I will have to give them up. Um, I will not be making these things a surprise to you. It will not come as a shock. I will let you know ahead of time of anything that is approaching the topic, anything that has been brought to my attention, or those sort of things, and we can do with that information what we feel is appropriate. Do you have any questions or concerns about that?
No, everything seems like pretty standard, so yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So, like I said, my name is Mary Elijah. I am a student at Alliant International University. What that means for you is that I work underneath a supervisor, Dr. Houston. All of his information is listed in the paperwork that you got before joining this Zoom call. Um, we will be recording our sessions, but that is for my educational purposes, nothing to do with you. It is simply as a tool for me to see how I'm doing, for my supervisor to give me any notes or things like that. With that being said, all of our sessions, after they're finished recording and being used for the teaching purposes, the recordings will be destroyed and disposed of in an appropriate manner. So none of your information will be anywhere. And if you do have any worries or concerns about that, you can always ask me. You can always ask my supervisor, and we'll make sure to clarify any of those procedures.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So with that being said, you're going to see me look down actually a few times, and that's because I have notes that I'm going to be taking. If
Mhm.
at any point in time you want to ask me what I'm writing down or anything that maybe is making you uncomfortable or curious, please feel free to ask. I use pen and paper, no iPads here, sorry. But at any point, feel free. Um, Anything about all of that? Questions, comments?
Mm.
Awesome. Well, then let's just dive right in. What brings you in today?
So I, you know, like I work for like a big marketing firm. I'm like project manager. So recently I actually suffered a stroke. I don't know if it was stress related. People are telling me that it was like, especially my husband was telling me that, like he was noticing a lot of like me being stressed out, I guess, leading up into me getting the stroke. But I don't know personally if it was related to work because, work is basically like most of what I focus my time on. Um, it's kind of like impacted me physically, but also mentally, like medically. I have now like more weakness and numbness on the limbs of like my left side. And I feel like I have some issues with balance since like the stroke. Um and also kind of just generally understanding what people say, like com like my comprehension's a little like not the best as what it used to be. Like I felt like before the stroke, I could be able to like just be on top of everything quickly and not have to like constantly ask multiple questions. And like I was just really quick with my thinking and just quick on my feet. And now I feel like it's just been really hindering a lot of that. So because of that, I feel like a lot of frustration and anger because I'm not able to basically perform what I used to do and independently. Now I have to really rely on a lot of other people for support, and that's like for physical help as well. I was really active before, but now just kind of like everything's I feel like since the stroke's just been at a stop in like my ability to be able to do things. So yeah, I don't I don't really recall much like after the stroke or before, but people were just telling me basically like, you know, that it had happened during like a team meeting and I had just like collapsed
Mhm.
and yeah, the paramedics came and everything, but I don't really remember much from it. I just kind of feel embarrassed that it happened at work. But yeah.
Well, it seems like it's a very scary situation to go through, and I'm glad that you seem to be doing better and you're out of the hospital now. So
Mhm.
very thankful for that. Um, so you had mentioned that the stroke had happened during a team meeting, and it seems like there maybe have been more like stressful times that people were noticing before that. Can you tell me a little bit more about what those stresses may have looked like or what people may have been observing in you?
Yeah, so basically my husband was kind of like noticing that I was working later nights because I got kind of like a big project that I was working on, like I was assigned like a big role and responsibility. Um and he was basically concerned for my well-being because of taking on this new project, which made me have to work longer hours at work and had like less time for doing the activities that I really enjoyed. It was just something that like I had to take responsibility for and I just couldn't like focus on other things because um it was just like something that I had to do and I had to do well so I don't disappoint, my like stakeholders, my big company like managers and everything and project managers. So I just had to make sure that it was done and because of that like I admit I did neglect kind of like my own personal well-being when it came to that, maybe like skipping meals, sleep wasn't the best. I mean, sleep currently is also like way worse, but at the time before it was not getting like accurate, like great amounts of sleep, working late hours, skipping meals, just like those.
Mhm. Okay, so it seems like it's really the stress kind of affected a lot of your maybe day-to-day like operations. I know you had mentioned just briefly there that you weren't sleeping very well before the stroke, and then you're sleeping even worse after the stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about maybe your sleep habits before the stroke had happened?
Yeah, so well, before even taking on that big project, I felt like I was getting way more consistent hours of sleep. Because I feel like I live a pretty healthy lifestyle and I used to meal prep and go on like running and hiking, like jogs and things like that with my husband. But now I feel like I was no longer able to do that when taking on this project. So taking since the timeline of like taking on that project, I could say like was difficulty like staying asleep. I would just constantly wake up, but also like even like just getting myself to go to bed because I'm like, oh, I'll just do this one other thing. I'll just do this one other thing. Then I look at the clock and it's already like 3, 4 a.m. and I have to wake up at like 8 a.m. to get, my stuff ready to go to work. So it just was not the best because I just kept thinking like, the day, there's only so many hours in a day, but I just felt like I wasn't getting enough done for this project. So I felt like those were like my productive hours. But again, like completely like neglecting my sleep like recently before the stroke happened.
Okay, so it seems like you're prioritizing maybe your job over more natural things that your body would need. Okay, so that was happening before the stroke. So after the stroke, you said that it had gotten worse. So what are your sleeping habits now currently?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, well, because of like the physical challenges, I feel like it's just harder to like find a comfortable like position to sleep in. And I think that really contributes to like my ability to be relaxed in like bed. And then, like my husband will help me go like tell me like, we should go to sleep now because you need like a decent amount of sleep, your body needs to recover. And not that I feel like he's like blowing it out of proportion, but I just feel like, now that I'm not able to do all of that stuff that I used to do and like work on like, that I can no longer work on that project anymore. I was like basically dropped from the project and now like focusing on my rest. And I just feel like I should be doing more. And I think because of that, like I'm just up all night thinking like, how could I have, you know, lost this project because of this, medical issue that happened. And I feel like I'm still able to try to at least like help in some way, but they kept saying that my breast is like the number one priority right now. And I agree I should be taking a rest, but I just feel like I want to be doing something. And because of that, I just get so frustrated and I just can't sleep all night. Like I just stay up all night thinking about all of this that's been happening.
I mean, I can definitely understand that frustration that you're coming from of having everything kind of in set and a plan, and then all of a sudden it all gets taken away. It seems like piece by piece, it's slowly pulling things out from what you've been accustomed to doing. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
definitely
definitely.
understand that emotional aspect of it. Um, how did it feel when your supervisor or your boss had let you know that you were no longer going to be a part of this project? What were those initial emotions?
Yeah, a lot of the same kind of what I was expressing before, like initial like frustration and anger. And then because I was like, why? Like I was just like assigned to it. I was working on it. I was doing like great progress. And now it's like all the credit will likely go to somebody else. And, I know my clients better than anybody. So I think that I would have done like a really great job at it. And so I just feel like it's like a lost opportunity for like my own career and personal growth that I was like kind of waiting for like the longest time to have this like more control over some of the projects that I wanted to oversee, especially with like these large companies. So um yeah, and it was initial frustration and anger, and then obviously like I'm reasonable. I understand that, something physical did happen to me, and I also see it in the way that like I interact in like my day to day and like what I was once able to do I'm not really able to do anymore. So I get that like, rest is necessary, but I also feel like the medical leave is, just a lot of time to myself. And because of that, I just get a lot more anxious and frustrated in my just day to day more than what I was before. Like I felt like I was more happy. I was happier before. I was able to do all the things that I want to do. Now I feel like there's a lot of these like mental and physical like barriers. So,
So you had mentioned your day to day kind of changing and shifting.
mhm.
Apart from your work, your emphasis on work, and your prioritization of that, were there any things you had done previously that maybe act as like coping or things that made you happy?
Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed hiking and running.
Mhm.
I used to also do Pilates, gardening. So like I can't even like bend down on like my knees to do like guard. I just feel really like weak in like my left side of like physics. So a lot of the physical stuff that I enjoyed doing can't do anymore. Also spending time with like my kids that also they're like adults now, so they live nearby, but um now they come visit me instead of me going and like visiting them to see what kind of they need. Um yeah, I those are more like the physical stuff. I'd also, like watching movies and staying in, but I feel like way more of an active person and can't really enjoy any of those things anymore because I have to take it easy.
Mhm. So since the stroke happened and all of the newfound time on your hands, have you found any new activities to maybe fill your time that bring you joy?
Like I said, like them watching movies, staying in, um, a lot of honestly like sedentary activity because of like my physical issues. I do go to like physical therapy, occupational and speech therapy. Like I do the all the works and stuff. So I feel like sometimes I get my physical needs like met as for like movement at physical therapy and stretching, but like I can no longer like do any Pilates that are, really like strength based exercises that also use like, your arms, your like balance and everything. And because of the loss of like balance and all that, can't really do those anymore. So yeah, more of just like listening to music, staying home, calling my kids to talk to them, how their day went and everything. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I can see the limitation of movement suddenly can be something so difficult to kind of get past. So I I can't say that I understand the feeling of it, but I definitely appreciate you sharing that with me. It's getting me a better insight of maybe how things are moving in the day to day. Um, how is physical therapy and occupational therapy going for you? How are you feeling about that process?
Yeah, it's going well. I think it's helping me a lot with like the movement aspects of it, and also like for example, like even like my speech and comprehending. I think it's helping. I had like a lot of like fatigue and brain fog sometimes after doing a lot of therapy all day, but I feel like it's making a big improvement, so I don't mind, you know. But yeah, I think helping with all of that is helping me get kind of back on track to hopefully at the level I was before.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that it's going well and it seems to be getting easier and better, which is always a more positive thing. Is your husband involved in any of the therapy like practices in any way with you?
Yeah, he'll take me to appointments and stuff,
Okay.
but yeah, it's more of like and he'll be there for support, like for helping me get up for certain things or bend down for certain things. Like he'll help me like grab stuff, but as for like the therapy process, like he's helpful in taking me to my appointments. But
And how does he feel about everything that's happened since the stroke? Has he expressed anything to you in regards to it?
I mean, yeah, like, well, prior to the stroke, he was, telling me that I should be taking it easier, because he kind of noticed like that I was coming home late and all that stuff. So now he's kind of like taken more of a role as like my primary caregiver. Um, so yeah, he helps me with like prepping, like, I mean, he preps the meals, he helps make sure I get like the proper nutrition um, in times where I'm like not able to like get downstairs without like some assistance, just because like I feel like my balance is a little bit off. I get a little nervous and like apprehensive about like going onto like stairs or even like in regards to like walking and hiking and things like that. Like, I mean, I can't do crazy hikes, but like he's really helpful in getting me to be able to kind of start doing the things that I enjoyed once. But yeah, he's been really helpful.
Okay, well, it's great to see that he's picking up spaces maybe that you're having a little bit of difficult time doing right now, and he's
Mhm,
supporting you in that way. I wanted to ask about your kids. You said that they lived close by enough to come and visit and often.
mhm.
How's your relationship with them?
Yeah, my kids are great. They're, I love spending time with them. I have two adult kids right now, so they live like pretty relatively close to like where my house is located, and they provide as much support as they can. Sometimes they'll like drop off groceries. Sometimes if my husband can't take me to appointments, they'll take me to appointments. Um, but yeah, they're great. They're, studying to one's in grad school, one is just finishing up undergrad, so they're they're like already on to kind of like bigger things, but I feel like I still have a great connection with my kids and they really did help me in my time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, they're able to come and support and, be there for you. And it seems like it's a positive thing on your end that it elicits a positive response, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, Outside of your immediate family, do you have any support, like groups or a support system that you're a part of?
Mm, I mean, not really. Like I wasn't I mean, I did have some friends from like Pilates and things like that, so I would kind of talk with them, but I haven't really seen or talked like spoken to them in a while. Um yeah, no, yeah, I mean we have like our couples friends and they came and visited me at the hospital and then like afterwards, but like they'll just mainly come and like make sure I like have everything I need, keep me company. They try to take my mind off of, you know, work related issues and the stroke and everything. They try to like help with that. But I just feel like, you know, again, because I have a lot of physical like restraints. And I think also mentally that's like starting to really affect me. So sometimes I might just not even want to see anybody because I'm just kind of like, I'm just more down than what I used to be. And since I don't know, I just don't really enjoy things how I used to. So like I feel like that's also like I said affected my appetite and I used to go out. I used to really enjoy going out to eat with friends, social, like would love meeting like up with clients, even to like talk over things through like a dinner or like a coffee break, like coffee like break and things like that. But yeah, I sometimes I just feel so out of it like fatigued bodily, but also mentally that I'm just like, I just want to be alone in my room and like not have to think about any like of this thing, that's constantly reminding me that like I cannot be at work right now. I have to rest and
So when those feelings of not wanting to see anyone, not wanting to go out, how do you deal with that? Like what do you do? You don't want to go out with friends, so what do you do? What do you say in those situations?
um nothing. I'll just like either like read a book to take my mind off of things. I'll watch a movie, kind of like talk with my husband and see like if he might want to get like I mean he'll tell me like, "Oh, let's go get fresh air" sometimes and I'll say no, but then sometimes I'm like I cannot be in this stuffy room anymore. So he'll like help me go around the block. Um but yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
And going around the block, how is it? Are you in a space where it's easy, like there's easy accessible sidewalks, or are there any difficulties to it? How does that?
Um I mean we do have like stairs in the front like to get to the main sidewalk. So that can kind of be a challenge in like getting around like outside. But I believe like I have um this what was it called? It's like an assisting device that the hospital gave to me in case like for the balance issues. It's like a quad cane, so that can like help stabilize me when I feel like I'm going downstairs. So like my husband will hold me on one side, like my weak side to support me, and then I'll have my quad cane in my right hand. So I'll make sure like I'm taking one step at a time. But the sidewalks, yeah, they're fine. Like we have it's accessible like in a neighborhood. So as long as I have like my cane with me just in case, and my husband is with me, and that's fine. But sometimes I get worried like I might fall and not be able to like really push myself to get up. But yeah, I don't go on walks by myself. Like my husband will help me.
You said you won't be able to push yourself to get up. Is that physically or emotionally, like you're unable to get yourself back up kind of thing.
I think more physically because like of the weakness. I feel like my wrists and my limbs sometimes even they get numb, sometimes even during the walk, like my left side. So I'll have to take like frequent breaks. So I just have to like kind of sit down and like pace myself. So that's why I'm scared. Like if in the instance that I do end up having a fall, like again, scared I might break something out, like I might break something and then that's gonna cause a whole other thing, like medical issues and then more physical issues that I just can't like I don't want to deal with. So I'd rather be safe than sorry in a sense. So having as much support as I can and like when I go outside is like I feel more comfortable that way because I wouldn't want to be alone and then something happened to me again and then like nobody's around to help me. That's like very scary for me. Like I would not want to experience that. Like luckily with I mean as much as I say that like it was embarrassing to have that at work because of like the level of like my reputation and things there. I just felt like, had that been alone, I feel like that would have been way more of a isolating like experience for me. And like I don't know where I would have ended up. And I'm just like really like nervous of that happening again. So like having people there, I think helps me a lot more, like more at peace of mind
Mhm.
than being alone.
Does your husband have to leave at any point during the day for work or any other obligations? Are you left alone at any
Yeah,
point?
so he sometimes does like work from home on certain projects that he has. So he yeah, he's like really flexible with his work. He was able to kind of like let his boss know about what's been going on and they were really receptive to that. So I'm really happy for that. But when he does leave, like I am on my own. Sometimes my kids, when they have time, they'll come and like watch over me. But yeah, sometimes when I'm alone, I try not to do like I try not to like my husband will make sure I have everything I need so I don't have to get up as often to do things on my own. But um sometimes even like going to the bathroom can be like a little bit of an issue. So he typically helps, but I think I'm able to do things more independently now than when I was like first released from the hospital. But yeah, like I said, the therapies have been really helping me maneuver and come up with like strategies to like put my body into place so that I won't, you know, get off balance or anything like that. So
Well, I'm glad to see that we're finding strategies to help like gain more independence back. That's incredibly important.
mhm.
Uh, so during the time that you are alone, you and your children aren't able to come over, and I know you express this kind of anxiety and nervousness of doing things independently. Um, Walk me through what a day would look like without anyone there.
Mm, it could be like so I wake up and then all my medications and everything would be by my nightstand, like water and kind of like breakfast, everything that I would need. And then um like I said, my husband does like the meal preps. So all essentially I would need to do is like heat up the food in like the microwave. I try not to use the stove as often or like things that would require a lot of like movement. So yeah, I will just like for food purposes, that's what I'll do. Sometimes I'll just sleep in. Sometimes I might skip lunch just because like I don't feel hungry. So, because yeah, sometimes like when there's no one to push me to eat, I won't really eat just because like I'll just be too into a show or a movie, um, or into even my book to just like get up and do that. Because sometimes I'm like, is it really worth the hassle of like, that bodily fatigue of like getting up and doing all that? But yeah, I will try to push myself sometimes that like, I need the nutrition, I need the nourishment to get better. So yeah, it's just basically like watching TVs and shows and movies and books until like my husband comes back. Sometimes I'll get bored. I might call my parents, see how they're doing, call my kids. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just kind of like wait for my husband to get home.
Okay. What time would he usually come home on those days?
Like 3:30.
Okay. So with enough time maybe to get dinner rolling and things like that together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I appreciate it. Um, In terms of work, has anyone from your colleagues or your bosses, has anyone reached out to you about any updates about work or checking in, things like that?
Um, I mean, my coworkers, they definitely, yeah, my boss and my coworkers definitely, they do check in on me. Um, I just feel like they try to intentionally, like when I try to ask about certain things that are going on at work for like certain projects or clients, they try not to tell me as much because I know they don't want me to worry. But yeah, like I mean, we briefly talk about how like my condition is and how I'm doing and how I'm recovering. But other than that, I think that's pretty much just it.
Okay. And how much time? I know you're really wanting to get back to work. I can definitely hear that. But
Definitely.
how much time are they allotting for this medical leave? Is it in your hands or have they given you a timeline?
Yeah, so it's been around, I think, like 5 to 6 months since the accident. I think I only have like a few more months left. Um, but I mean, they told me like if I want to take more time, I can just go like speak to my doctor and he can write a note and they'll be able to work with it. But I just feel like this stroke was just such a big aspect of something that just happened to me
Mhm.
that I don't know, like, I do wanna go back, and they are telling me, like, as much time as you need, and if you need more, just let us know, but I don't wanna take any more time off because even though my pay was really good, but prior to the medical leave and having to take on that big project, I would have gotten way more, like, of a pay because I was more of, like, a lead on that project. So because of that, I think like it is kind of taking a toll on like my finances, being able to do like pay for all these medical treatments, but then now like the medical leave pay is not as substantial as like what my actual income was, and my husband having to kind of like take care of me has to take some time, off of work or like will not like finish certain things because he's working from home, so he's always constantly checking up on me, and I feel like that kind of impacts his number of hours worked. So yeah, I just feel like I'd want to go as soon as I can back to work to be more independent and have my husband also like be able to work.
Okay, so you mentioned the medications. What kind of medications are you on?
Yeah, so, after getting discharged from the hospital, they did prescribe me some like blood thinners. I'm currently taking blood thinners to kind of they told me like to prevent further clotting to stop, I guess, that a stroke from possibly happening again. And I also have like high blood pressure, which is also like being managed with like medication. So, but I don't think, yeah, I haven't been prescribed any like psychiatric medication for any mood or other psych related symptoms or anything.
Okay. Has there ever been a history in your family of needing these medications to be prescribed?
I mean, my mom struggled with anxiety and depression. So, and that kind of manifested into more, I guess what they said, like somatic symptoms, which is like I think from what I experienced, she had a lot of like fatigue and headaches and dizziness a lot. And I mean, my dad had a history like being like Irish American. I mean, I guess it's common for like the men in like our families to drink a lot. So he had like a history of like alcohol use and like possibly probably abuse too. But he wasn't like really taking anything. Um, so yeah, like I guess growing up, I had to deal with both my parents kind of having to manage their own symptoms with all of that. And I think that kind of manifested into my having to take care of my family, but also like I have two younger siblings too. So like I was the oldest, always having to like manage my dad's like outbreaks because of his alcohol use. And like my mom just kind of like being on the receiving end of it, but her also just being so like out of touch because she was just like focused on her own, worries and issues. So
And can you speak a little bit more about your relationships with them currently?
yeah, so I mean, I have like a good relationship with my parents. I have younger siblings. Their names are Mia and Josh. Mia's like 41, Josh is 39. So, but they no longer live in Massachusetts, which is where I'm currently staying, like where I grew up and currently still stay. Um, I have a close relationship with them, but I haven't really been able to visit them, obviously, because of like my responsibilities and kind of my situation. And even before the stroke, like I felt like I was kind of like not as close, and because I just had so many things going on. But after the stroke, they actually did, you know, come for like a couple weeks to help take care of me and see if I needed anything. So I think our bond is still there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Mhm.
So, how are you able to cope with a stressful home environment or having to help raise your siblings when you were younger?
Yeah, definitely. I felt like I was the parent in most cases, and I think having to always take that, like, be the person in charge to, because my parents, like, yeah, they were adults, but I felt like as a kid, I had to really be responsible at a very young age and have to take on that, like, big responsibility of, like, practically raising, like, two kids and me being a kid as well. I felt like I had to grow up really early 'cause, like, I was also taking care of my parents in a way too, like, my mother, if she ever needed anything, couldn't get out of bed some days, like, I would basically be her caretaker, and then also having to, deal with my siblings that were crying, that were upsetting my mother. Also, even in the times when, like, my dad would come home, like, drunk, just kinda, like, help him not, like, lay on the floor, like get to his room like safe and sound. It was always just kind of a struggle for me, kind of witnessing that. And I think like again, like I mentioned, like having to grow up and be responsible at a young age, I think definitely has kind of shaped who I am right now. Of like even like being like a super mom, how when was raising my kids, like always just being very careful of them, making sure they had everything that they could to like succeed and to grow up well and not have to worry about, you know, all the things that I had to worry about as like a child. So I really wanted to keep them at ease because coming from like a childhood that I had, like it was always really like you didn't know what to expect. If my mom wasn't feeling well that day, my dad wasn't showing up for like how many hours when he needed to, sometimes even like walking home from school because like nobody could really pick us up. So I have to like, make sure my siblings are okay and so we make it at home okay. So even like taking care of like our food like situation, like I'd always have to be the one to kind of like make sure my siblings had eaten because there just wasn't a lot of, I think, help with that because of, my parents just not really being as involved as they should have been, I think.
So, do you think that your childhood experiences has helped or hindered your adult experiences in any way? I know you had mentioned the way that you take on this role of supermom, but are there any other impacts that you've noticed?
Yeah, definitely like in who I am and like my identity. Like even in my work, like I think I that really transcends also into like my workplace because I'm always trying to make sure everything is done properly, make sure like that, you know, even my like teammates are taken care of. I like really do not like and neglect like my coworkers at all when it comes to making sure that they fully understand what's going on. I kind of like also in a way take care or try to take care or help them in some sort of way when it comes to these projects. So yeah, I think it's definitely influenced the way I've grown to be as an adult and like really almost every other aspect of my life. I even though I do take care of people and I try to be more independent, I feel like I haven't really had a lot of people take care of me. And because of that, I feel like what I'm going through kind of right now is very like foreign to me. Like I've never had to just sit down and just be taken care of. I've always had to be the one thinking like on my feet and like, okay, what can I do now to help, the situation, or to help, with the progress of whether it's like the project or even like my home life, family life with my kids, with everything going on. So I feel like it's just weird to be in like I just feel kind of helpless. Like to being taken care of, I think I feel more of in that like helpless position because of the fact that like I am not able to care for myself in the capacity that I was able to before, and having to rely on others, I think really stresses me out a little bit. But again, I know I'm being well taken care of with like my husband, my kids, everyone's so attentive, but I just personally don't feel like I feel a little awkward, I feel a little uncomfortable having to be the one that's taken care of, have to like sit down and like, be just there, taking it all in, not doing anything. It's just foreign to me to not do that, to not get up and do things.
Yes, that shifting role of being the one that's doing all the taking care of to being the one that needs to be taken care of. That can be a very frustrating shift. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. Um, do you think, or in any way, do you feel like your stroke has impacted your identity or the way that you view yourself as a whole person?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like, it's not a, I mean, kind of like a vulnerability, because like I said, like it's a good and a bad thing that it happened in front of people. It's a good thing because of the whole, um, like people were there to assist me to get like medical assistance and emergency services as quickly as possible, for the medical, physical, like health aspect of it. But I think when it comes to like my reputation at my workplace, I feel like it kind of threw it off because it kind of made it seem like I couldn't handle what I was initially assigned to do. It felt like I felt kind of like weak in that moment, and like embarrassed because like I'm like, oh my god, now everyone's staring at me. Like, even though I don't really remember much other than like me just being on the floor and people surrounding me. I think in that moment, like also looking back, like I felt kind of embarrassed because it was just something that I never expected to happen in like the workplace, and where like I felt, I feel comfortable in my workplace. It's not like I'm like scared of like my bosses or how my coworkers think of me. It's just more of like because I'm always doing the helping. It was just kind of weird to have like everyone like surround me and be concerned for me, and because I never really feel like I showed any vulnerability at my workplace when it comes to that. I'm always just like, how can I help others, and then not how people can come help me. And so in that moment, I felt kind of like, oh my god, like what are people gonna now think of me now that I collapsed at work? They're gonna think, that I'm just like stressed out all the time and that I couldn't handle it, and just some other thoughts that like come to mind that I'm like, I don't think they would have thought of me that way if I had I not had this stroke in the workplace.
Mm. So it seems I'm hearing a lot of that determining emotional drive kind of thing. And it seems like things are going really well with your physical and occupational therapy, that we're kind of getting that semblance of independence back.
Hmm.
What are your goals for like your immediate goals? Like, what are you hoping to get out of therapy or just in general?
Yeah, I mean, definitely would be, um, getting back to where I once was, like cognitively too, but also like mentally. Like I just feel really sad sometimes. Like some of the, I guess you could say, like triggers that I have is like, seeing people do things independently, like how I used to, like seeing people even like walk their dogs and like going on hikes with, their loved ones, their like little like pets. I feel like sometimes when I'm even ordering, let's say like food through like a drive-through or something, I struggle to find like my words, and or even in social situations like communicating, I think some has become kind of like more of an issue for me that I think might be an issue if I have to go back to work. So, as for like goals, I think would be kind of, I don't really have, like I said, like I don't have like cope any way to cope with all of this. I was more of like a super mom. I was like taking care of everybody. But now that I have to take care of myself, it's getting like hard. I don't feel like I have like that balance. Again, kind of like that too, I guess, a work-life balance so that maybe this doesn't happen again. So that I can be able to incorporate like my what I love and also like be able to work. So I guess do that in a healthier way. Um, yeah, just kind of like regain back like my autonomy and be able to live my life to the best I can, even after experiencing this something that I'd want to work on.
Yeah, I definitely see how those goals are starting from like A to Z kind of thing, and it's important to really find something to work towards, and these are all very appropriately desired goals, and I definitely think that we will get to finding ways to make all of these incorporated in your day to day. Um, do you have any questions for me or anything you'd like to add in just really quick as we start?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm I think I'm okay. Yeah, I don't think I have any other questions other than like I guess, well, how long do you think that would be able to maybe see like the changes with some of the goals that I have in place? Like, is there like a certain like I don't know like timeline or can we take it like step by step or are we working with like my needs or how does this work? Because I'm kind of new to that.
Yeah, completely understandable. We will take it step by step at the pace that you set. It's it's important that you feel comfortable in the entire process. So at any point in time you don't like the direction that things are going, we can shift it. Or we can move on to something different. We can revisit anything at any point in time. But the pace that it's set is entirely up to you and what you're willing to do. Now, it's not going to be a one session fixes all sort of thing. It will take time and it will take patience on yourself as well.
Mhm.
But it's definitely something that we can pace ourselves with. It's as anything that you want to speed through, we can check that box off. Anything we want to take more time on, we can also do that as well. Um, and again, anything that you ever have a question about, you could just interrupt me and say so. However, makes you feel comfortable.
Mhm. Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. I definitely learned a lot about you, and I definitely think that the purpose of this session was met. We went through a lot of the history before the stroke happened and maybe kind of noticing that prioritizing work was causing a lot of stress that other people were also noticing. We also talked a lot about how the stroke affected you and maybe kind of caused some of these more nervous feelings about maybe day to day activities. And I do know that we're doing more occupational and physical therapy to get more of the physical side of things to work maybe the way that they used to.
Mhm.
But I definitely think we'll focus a lot more on maybe emotionally and mentally getting back to how we were feeling before the stroke, and also finding different ways to cope with what's happened and finding new ways to find that happiness and joy that we once had. Um, I Oh yeah. I definitely think that, going through our goals and maybe what we're focusing on, and with that goal of getting back to work and getting more into that project management side of things. I know we have a few more months until you are going back, but maybe we can revisit kind of those emotions of revisiting work again further down the line when we get closer to your reemployment day, I guess. How
Mhm.
does all of that sound for you so far?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Sounds great.
Awesome. Other than some of the things that we went through, like your family, your history, the goals, how you're feeling. Is there anything else you have questions for me on, or
Mm, mm,
no? All right. Well, it was an absolute pleasure meeting you, and I hope that you have a wonderful day after this. And I hope this gives you a lot of things to think about. And maybe when we meet up next time, if you have anything else that you'd like to bring in, I'll write those down for us. Um, but other than that, you have a wonderful day, and it was really nice meeting you.
Thank you, you too. It was a great help being able to talk about all of this. So
I'm
thank
glad.
you.
Okay, I will see you the next time.
Mhm.
Bye.